Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to the drive-thru. I'm your assistant teacher kind of person. I don't know. Guest speaker. Claire. Yeah. Okay. So today we're going to use the double angle formula, the half angle formula, graphs with the double angle, power reducing, and half angle formula, solve applications involving the double angle, power reducing formulas, and use the power reducing formulas. So the two of those are listed right in here. Right over here, and the half angle formula will be covered later. So here's the first problem. We're going to find the exact value of this trigonometric function right here. So we're trying to find 2 times this angle. And so we can use these handy dandy double angle formulas, and since we want to find sine 2 of the angle, we use that formula. So we get sine 2 theta equals 2 sine theta cosine theta, and so we can find the sine and cosine using this right triangle right here. So the sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse, 7/25, and the cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 24/25. And then we just plug it in to this handy dandy formula and get that sine of 2 theta is equal to 2 times 7/25 times 24/25. And if we plug that into a calculator, you get that it is 336/625. So that's the answer, and that is equal to sine of 2 times this angle. Alright, next problem. So in this problem we have the tangent of A, and we have the range that the angle's in, so we can draw the right triangle to find A. So since it's between 90 and 180 degrees, the triangle has to be in quadrant 3 or 2, and since it's negative, it has to be in quadrant 2, quadrant 2. So actually, that's wrong. It has to be up and down to the left. So like this. This is in quadrant 2, because the tangent is negative. So then we get this side is -3, this side is 4, and because of the 3, 4, 5 right triangle, the hypotenuse is 5. Actually, the triangle would be drawn like this, since it's in the second quadrant. You have a point of reference here, which you draw to 0, and then your triangle is -3, 4, and 5. So then theta is, angle A is right here, and so the tangent is -4/3, and then you can find the sine and cosine of that too. So the sine of A equals opposite over hypotenuse, which is 4/5, and the cosine of A is equal to -3/5, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. So now we can use the half angle formula, which actually is not on the sheet right now. You have to get it from this. So using this, to get to u/2, to get that sine of u/2, you divide this 2 out of the equations and also square root it to get rid of the square right here. So the equation is going to look like this. It's going to look like plus or minus radical 1 minus cosine of u/2. And that's going to be different for all of the other ones. So cosine of u/2 is going to be 1 plus cosine u/2, and tangent of u/2 is going to be 1 minus cosine of u over 1 plus cosine of u. So just for that. And yeah, so now we're going to apply those formulas. And so the first one, sine A/2, you're trying to find sine of A/2 is equal to, so let's put our formula down, plus or minus radical 1 minus cosine A over 2. So you're always going to change this variable depending on the one that's in this side of the equation right here. And yeah, so now we plug in all of our variables. So we know what the cosine of A is right here. So we plug that in and we get this equals plus or minus radical 1 minus negative 3 over 5 over 2. And this equals plus or minus radical 8 over 5 over 2, so that's 8 over 10, which equals radical 4 over 5, plus or minus radical 4 over 5, and you can simplify that if you want. This is a standard answer if you want to keep it that way, or you can make it plus or minus 2 over radical 5, or you could multiply radical 5 and get 2 radical 5 over 5, plus or minus. These are all acceptable answers. So yeah, that's the one part of the equation. That's sine. And so to do the next parts, it's very similar to the to what we did here. We're just plugging into the equation that we're given with the half angle formula. And so we're going to do that for the next two as well, as soon as I clear some workspace. So the next one, cosine A over 2. So let's write the equation. Cosine A over 2 is equal to plus or minus radical 1 plus 1 plus cosine U over 2. And then you're going to plug more in. I have a bell right now, so I'm going to go have fun doing.
Alright, this is going to be a wild video. I can't wait to see how this one turns out. Picking up the baton from Claire. Here comes the Barry White voice, as I got a bad cold. This looks great, what she's doing, but I wanted to kind of re-explain what she's doing, what's happening here. Let's let U be the same thing as x over 2. And then, if we multiplied both sides by 2, 2u would be x. What I'm trying to do is explain to you guys how she turned that into a half angle formula. So then we have sine squared of u is 1 minus cosine of 2u over 2. Now let's take out the u's and put in x over 2. So sine squared of x over 2 is 1 minus cosine of, well, 2u is x divided by 2. Well, if you remember, sine squared of x is the same thing as sine of x squared. So that is why you saw her take the square root of both sides. And what you get is the sine of x over 2 is the square root of 1 minus the cosine of x over 2. So that's how she got the sine of, let's see, she got the sine and cosine there, and now we are in the middle. So let's do part A. The sine of alpha over 2 will equal, I need a little room, well, let's go down to this, 1 minus the cosine of alpha divided by 2, all square rooted. So it's 1 minus, well, the cosine is negative 3/5, so 1 plus 3/5, all divided by 2, square rooted. That's 5/5 plus 3/5, so that's 8/5. The square root of 8/5 over 2, which is the square root of 8/10. And I don't know how they want us to write this answer. The square root of radical 8/10 is radical 8 over radical 10, which is radical 80 over 10. I multiply both sides by radical 10 over radical 10, which is the square root of 16 times 5 over 10. 4 radical 5 over 10. This is so annoying. 2 radical 5 over 5. That's your exact answer. Okay? So that's probably enough to get you started on that type of problem. Believe me, if you guys need help on your Math Excel, just come find me. We'll work on it together. Okay? All right, use the power reducing formulas to rewrite the expression as an equivalent expression that does not contain powers of trig functions greater than 1. So 3 times the sine of x to the 4th power. All right, so, well, sine squared x is 1 minus the cosine of 2x over 2. So, if I do 3 times that, and I do 3 times that, okay, so 3 times the sine of x squared would be 3 minus 3 cosine of 2x over 2. Okay, got it. So let's see. What we have here is 3 times the sine squared of x. So now, if I square this, and so here, let me rewrite this. All right, now I just squared the right side. So now I'm going to square the left side. And that gives me, oh, no, that's not what I wanted. That's going to give me 9. I'll just write it out. 9 times sine to the 4th of x. And that's not what we want. So we wanted to, eventually we're going to divide this whole thing by 3, but we'll get there. So what is that? Well, that's 3 minus 3 cosine of 2x over 2 times 3 minus 3 cosine of 2x over 2. Okay? Alright, so let's just go ahead and divide by 3. So over here we have 3 times the sine to the 4th of x. I got to divide this by 3, so let's multiply by 1/3. So you get on the top 3. We're foiling. You get 9 minus 9 cosine of 2x minus 9 of cosine of 2x, so minus 18 cosine of 2x, and then plus 9 cosine squared of 2x, all over 2 times 2, so all over 12. Ugh. Alright, so let's see, let me read the directions. Use the power reducing formulas to rewrite the expression as an equivalent expression that does not contain powers. Oh, I can do that. Watch this. I'm just going to go back to this. This is the answer. Don't write them back together. Just write it as 3 minus 3 cosine of 2x times 3 minus 3 cosine of 2x all over 12. I think that might be sufficient because none of those involve a trig function to a power. Otherwise, we'd have to use the power reducing formula on that again, and I'm just not going to do that right now. Do your best on the homework, as we said. We're just trying to get ourselves introduced to this stuff. Come see me for help. Boom!